Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and today I have a very special guest here joining us who covers the Arizona Cardinals. Also a very accomplished, just about everything, to be completely honest. And I know you'll be humble about this yourself, but a former NFL player, Ed Smith, who's also a former pro baseball player, played in the XFL, played in NFL Europe. He's a co-host on the Easy Sports talk show on 1060 AM in Phoenix, as well as the Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals podcast on the Bleav network. And I'd be remiss to say you were also a member of the 1998 NFC Champion Atlanta Falcons, among various other teams, and in a very long bloodline, it looks like, of very successful tight ends in the league. So, Mr. Ed Smith, I'd like to welcome you to the program.
Thanks for having me, Joe. A lot of people will call me well-traveled, and that's exactly what I've been through the course of my career. And then obviously, like you said, I got my nephew up in Minnesota I'm rooting for as well. So appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of wanted to start with that angle almost right out the gate here, because as I'm sure you're aware, covering the Cardinals, and it's been a storyline already midway through the week. The first thing that came out of everyone's mouth talking about, the Steelers, if they could be successful on offense against the Cardinals defense that has been, I want to say disappointing, but it hasn't maybe been performing as well as they can. I've had some changes. Obviously, there's talented players still, such as like Terrell Suggs or Patrick Peterson, but I'm aware that you guys just released one of the guys that was playing a lot in your secondary, one of the cornerbacks, and it's one of the things where the Cardinals defense has struggled against tight ends all year. I believe I heard or read somewhere that they've given up 100 yards of receiving against the tight end position against every single team that they've faced this year. So, likewise, the Steelers used to have a bugaboo with tight ends themselves, and, the Steelers defense is kind of on the rise. For all intents and purposes, off the top of your head, how do you see this game playing out? Because personally, myself, the Steelers haven't maybe utilized their tight ends as much this season as maybe they would have liked to. Big Ben, when he was healthy, always used to kind of have that security blanket. Years ago is Heath Miller. Recent years is Vance McDonald. Vance McDonald has not really had like the big breakthrough game yet this year. Do you think that he could cause some problems for the Arizona defense?
Well, if you're looking for your tight end to get on track, all you have to do is have the Cardinals on your schedule, and we're going to do our best to help you guys out. It's been one of those things, my partner Javon Adams and I, we've been talking about all through the season on the Bleav in Arizona podcast. It has been remarkable how, you see a problem and you imagine we would address it and try to fix it, but every week it seems to get worse and worse and worse. We actually let the Rams backup tight end, I think his last name was Higbee, he came in here last name and dropped 107 yards on us and a touchdown on 7 receptions. It's almost been like every week we've done our best to try to make whoever comes in that position a Pro Bowl candidate. And, as far as the defense overall, we started the season with Patrick Peterson out for 6 games with the suspension, and we assumed, okay, he's that staple. When we get him back, we're going to take care of this problem. It has just continued all the way through the season, and you mix that with the fact that we can't tackle, we can't get pressure on the quarterback. It just makes for a really, really bad recipe for a defense that's, struggling, and then an offense that, it's more of a horizontal attack than a vertical attack. So we just got a big mix of bad out here right now. And what happened to us this past week, we've been staying in a lot of these games all through the season, even though our record doesn't kind of show it. We went into, had halftime leads against really big opponents, and we'd always falter at the end. This past week, we came out and just gave it up from the beginning. And it was one of those games I was waiting on it to happen. And when it finally did, it's the same, with 5 games to go at the time, we were thinking, okay, let's get this last stretch in, make it at least look, presentable. Man, we did the exact opposite. We just turned it over, gave up everything that the Rams wanted, and it's really bad, like a sour taste in our mouth right now, especially with the Steelers coming in here with everything guys have to play for.
Yeah, and, let me be quite honest. The Steelers weren't looking so hot to begin the season. When I look at the Cardinals' record, of course, the tie game, Kyler Murray, that was a really exciting game to start week one, the opening week of the season, 27-all with the Lions. You guys have, what is it? Is it 3-8-1? Is the record. 3 of the wins all came in a row, 2 of them on the road, and then 1 at home. So they played at the Bengals, at the Falcons, and at the Giants. Those are 3 wins. So currently 5-game losing streak against some, really quality teams here. Losses against the Saints, Buccaneers. Of course, you mentioned the Rams getting back on track last week as well. And then 2 against the 49ers, of which those were competitive games when I saw them too. So, I have my concerns, and I'm still not sure, where the Steelers stand, because the Steelers are kind of almost taking a playbook. I used to poke fun at the Baltimore Ravens all the time for this, and that was play really great defense, let your kicker, kick some field goals, very kind of low scoring, almost kind of the MO of some of the Steelers teams from a decade ago even. And that's kind of where I'm looking at with this Cardinals game, is the Cardinals have given up, 30 or better in 6 games this year, and then 27 and better in all but 3 of those games. So it's, they've been giving up a lot on the defensive end of things, but the Steelers offense, of course, it doesn't appear that they're going to have Juju Smith-Schuster or James Conner yet again. They've been really rolling with a lot of, it's almost backups to backups when you look at the way the roster was structured over the last few years with like a Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell, and they thought that they had their replacements in hand, and those guys, James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster, have been largely either ineffective or unavailable this season. So this is still a game that concerns me, because the Steelers, they have to go on the road. You have to play in the desert. And, how do you feel about, I guess I should ask this first, because you have a quarterback in Devlin Hodges. He entered training camp as the number 4 guy. He was just supposed to be a camp arm. And I know everybody, he's got the cool nickname, and everybody is like, it's like almost like a Duck Mania, like the Minshew Mania that went on in Jacksonville. But, to be realistic, now he's got to go on the road and he's got to contend with this. Are Cardinals fans still kind of supportive of the team there, or is this going to be one of those instances like with the Chargers where there's a lot of terrible towels in the stands?
Joe, I'm preparing for Pittsburgh Mania to come over out here and take over the stadium. The difference out here, and I've been all over the country, and obviously played in the NFL, and I've seen different fan bases. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Green Bay Packers, Oakland Raiders. You guys have a rabid fan base that not only is all in force at home, but you travel well, in addition. For the Cardinals, one of our biggest problems with our fan base is everybody here is from somewhere else, and they have allegiances to their other teams, and they might say, well, as a backup, they like the Cardinals, but they always throw that caveat out there when they're good. And when they're bad, man, I'm telling you, this past week, I talked to a gentleman who was actually at the Rams game, and he noted, it was about a 50-50 split. And even with saying that, the stadium was about 75% full. I'm thinking with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in here, it's going to be 100% full, but it might be a 70-30 split in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously we won't have a home field advantage there. One of the things I'm most impressed with, you brought up the fact that Hodges is your quarterback. Man, I've always been a Tomlin fan. What he's done with this mismatch and, guys in and out of the lineup has been so impressive to me. And, with the fact that the Steelers have something to play for, they sneaked into that 6th spot as far as the wild card. And they're not coming in here just trying to finish off a season. They're trying to get that playoff money, man. That means extra motivation for them. And I'm a little worried after the game we put on the field, or what we put on the field last week as far as the Cardinals, that we get down early and just fold up the tents because it's so close to the end of the season. It's going to be a real test to find out whether we put it all out there and lay it out there and try to get this victory, or if guys are already making their vacation plans. And it's always nice to go on vacation when you're not hurt. So maybe instead of making that extra tackle or throwing it out there, maybe you make that business decision. And, because it'd be nicer to walk around without a limp or on crutches during the off season. So I'm a little worried about that, like I said. And once again, the Steelers, man, I got to applaud you guys for what you've done, because the first game of the season, you lose Ben, and boom, everybody's thinking, oh, it's the end of the world. And at 7-5, who would have thunk it, man?
Well, I was telling everyone here to not panic, and we took a lot of criticism for that as well, because when you go 0-3, I said, look at the teams that they were playing. Even the first 5 games, they lost 4 of those games. But they lost to the Patriots, they lost to the Seahawks, they lost to the 49ers, and they lost to the Ravens. And in 3 of those games, very much either things that were self-defeating, turnovers, penalties. They were competitive with everyone except for New England, which is crazy because that's the only game where Ben played a full game. So, it's one of those things. And I heard this coming this morning. I want to say it was, I was driving. It might have been Bob Papa or one of the hosts on NFL radio on the Sirius XM. And they were talking about, could this be a letdown game? In other words, could it be that the Steelers regress? I mean, they've been really reliant on their defense. If their defense isn't able to come through, or they stay on the field for 40 minutes, which that's not necessarily realistic, but there has been some times where they've really lost the time of possession battle, and that's part of those early losses in the season as well, where the offense hadn't been able to do a whole lot of things. Now, you said this is the team you want to face, the Arizona Cardinals defense, that is, in order to get your offense maybe on track. But still, looking at things how it is, a lot of the guys that are in the starring roles right now, either they weren't here last year, or they were pegged as being way down on the depth chart. Devlin Hodges didn't make the initial 53 roster. Now, everyone's heralding him as a hero. And you got to see what he does. You know what I mean? I like the underdog stories as much as anyone, and I'm a professed FCS football fan. So I like seeing small college guys really succeed, but I also try and put in some type of realistic expectation. Tomlin had come out and said, well, he didn't kill us. Well, it almost happened, but the Steelers defense kind of rose to the occasion. What might, is there anything that the Cardinals can do to maybe shake this up? Either, get Hodges rattled. You got James Washington, who's still a second-year player, who's kind of ascended to the top receiver role right now. You got another rookie in Deontay Johnson in the other receiver role, and then yet another rookie, more than likely going to be the feature back in Benny Snell this upcoming Sunday. Is there anything the Cardinals can do, or that you see that they may attempt to do to kind of, rattle this offense, rattle Duck Hodges, and kind of try and turn something in their favor?
The key for me is the Cardinals front, and particularly Chandler Jones. He had a few games stretched about a month ago where he was just a monster. He was a beast, and even in some of the games we didn't win, you just felt his presence out there. And we also got some, couple. I think Buda Baker showed out a couple times against the 49ers. What we need to do with Hodges coming in here, obviously he's got a small sample size of, being a starting quarterback. And, with the young rookie quarterbacks, you want to throw the kitchen sink at them. And that could be a combination of a couple things. Intense pressure, from that front to get him off his spot, maybe make him a couple bad decisions, or you might have to blitz the heck out of him. Thus far, I'm still trying to figure out what the, defensive personality or what we're doing out here in Arizona with the defense. We haven't been a big blitzing team. We don't have incredible push up the middle. And what's happening is we're allowing quarterbacks to sit back there and just pick us apart, especially down the middle of the field with the tight ends, as we mentioned earlier. So if we come in to this game with a game plan to put pressure on Hodges, force some of those mistakes, we'll have a chance. The other thing we can't do, and I guess with the unknown factor of Connor, whether he's going to play, obviously you have your backups who've been doing a serviceable job. If we can stop the run game and make Pittsburgh turn into a throwing team, I think we'll have a chance. But more than likely, I think Pittsburgh's going to come in here with a mentality they're going to protect Hodges, meaning put the ball keep it on the ground, exploit some holes, miss tackles, whatever it is, and then take your shots. And one of the things I've been impressed with Hodges, even more so than Rudolph. Rudolph was, a lot of dink and dunk. He was dink dunk all the way down the field. Last week, I was impressed that Hodges a couple times, and maybe one time too many, just kind of tossed it up there. But that shows a little confidence and no fear, and maybe a little naivety too. But I like the fact that he tossed the ball down the field, and if they can do that, then opening everything up in the middle of the field with the tight ends, it could be a long day for us defensively here.
Yeah, still got to look out for Budda Baker, though. That was a guy we wanted to see in black and gold several years ago when he was drafted, but didn't turn out that way. And, that's a great way of putting it. I wish I hadn't actually said it in the same way you just phrased it, fearless. And sometimes that could be good or bad. And Hodges is also getting some help from his receivers that Rudolph wasn't getting with some drops and stuff. But at the same time, I just feel like Rudolph hasn't been the same player since he took that hit, and a lot of his passes are behind or late, or it's not like they're not catchable, but he's not making it as easy as Hodges is as well. But we've also seen Hodges make some rookie mistakes, where maybe he should have just taken the sack or not, instead of throwing a ball away or anything like that, to let the clock run near the end of the game. And Mike Tomlin had also been quoted in his presser saying that somebody had asked him the question like, "Oh, what are you working on with him?" And he basically kind of snickered and said everything. To that effect. It's like, well, yeah, the guy's only been here for a couple of months. At least he had a training camp. I think that's the biggest thing that helps. Yeah. He's just not some random body off the streets, which is never formula for success. Nor should this really be a formula for success either, with all of the injuries and everything. So at least Mike Tomlin, there's seems to be a system that's in place here, players who fit a particular mold, and it really shouldn't be plug and play, but it's been working. The Steelers had, they had success. They had a battle with the Rams, and I looked back and I caught some of the Rams and Cardinals game, and I think the biggest thing was when you're looking at the Rams defensively, they gave up a ton of yards, or not the Rams, I'm sorry, the Cardinals gave up a lot of yards defensively to the Rams. I had the number here, 549 offensive yards, and Jared Goff threw for 424 and 2 touchdowns, which, I don't see that same kind of thing going on if you're looking at the Steelers' offense now. Todd Gurley almost had a 100-yard game on his own. They did rush for over 100 yards as a team total. They scored 34 points. I'm really not sure, will the Steelers just try and keep it kind of on the ground game and try to maybe do time of possession and kind of as I was talking, let the defense kind of take over, run the football. And I don't know if it'll stay in low scoring territory or not. Ed, we do have the FanDuel Sportsbook as a sponsor here too. And they actually have the over-under for this game at 43.5. And, the odds makers, the bookies, they usually get it right. And for me, I'm like, where does that lean towards? Because I'm going to be talking here about the Cardinals offense up against the Steelers defense here just shortly. And, of course, the Cardinals are getting 2.5 points, which, that's kind of the standard home team kind of deal there. So basically a field goal if you're looking at the line for this game. FanDuel is officially live in Pennsylvania in partnership with Valley Forge. And as always, more ways to win on FanDuel Sportsbook, because now, guess what? Brian was kind of joking about this, just a week ago, but there's so many different ways you could win. He mentioned, there's money lines, spreads, totals, parlays, props, teasers, and more. It's almost more than what even my cursory knowledge of doing any type of sports betting is beyond. You could go on, you could find anything, the prop bets, you could see, hey, so-and-so is going to throw for so many yards, and you could also kind of stack those together and kind of mix and match them and get everything together. You could have like 3 different layers of things that could happen on any given day, and you could all do it from your fingertips if you happen to have a smartphone with you, Android and or an Apple iPhone. So the FanDuel Sportsbook has tons of bet types. They're available every single day, pretty much every single sport. Plus, they always offer unique betting promos to spice up game day. It's like boosted odds, score bonuses, parlay insurance, and there's with so much here to bet on across 17 different sports. I didn't even know it was 17, but that's just how much is going on with the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're sure to have a wager that's just right for you. And best of all, you can place your first bet on FanDuel Sportsbook risk-free. If you lose, you'll get a refund of up to $500. Now, we were talking about the Steelers with their line. The Arizona Cardinals are plus 2.5. That means the Steelers are minus 2.5. There's over-under is 43.5 for this game, but there's different parlays. The Steelers, you could take minus 1.5 and over 43.5 points, for example. There's also the under to that, or the Cardinals. Get the points with the Cardinals and over 43.5. Not that I'm necessarily feeling that one so much, but there's home and away team total points. There's winning margins. There's first half money lines, first half spreads, first quarter winners, and much, much more. Seriously, you'll go cross-eyed looking at all the stuff that's on here. So why do I keep telling you this? Just go and download the FanDuel Sportsbook app yourself. And when you do, make sure you sign up with the promo code SCU for Steel City Underground. Of course, that lets the fine folks there who help bring this show to you know that you heard it here first with Steel City Underground. And it also allows you to place that risk-free bet with a refund of up to $500. You can bet anywhere in Pennsylvania or anywhere else that the FanDuel Sportsbook may be available. Be sure to check out their website, of course, or the app for more details on that. Of course, the website is sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you lose your first bet within 7 days of signing up using that promo code SCU, FanDuel Sportsbook will give you a refund up to $500 in site credit. So once again, that's promo code SCU. And of course, folks, cash out not available in all markets. Offer applies to first online wager only. Refunds are issued as a site credit. Site credit expires after 14 days. Go to sportsbook.fanduel.com for full terms. You must be 21 or older and present currently in New Jersey or Pennsylvania in order to play. If you have a gambling problem, please don't forget to call 1-800-GAMBLER. And where was I at? I just talked myself in a circle. Yeah. Oh, I was talking about like a time of possession type game. I'm trying to think about scoring here because if the bookies are saying 43.5, I'm looking at the Cardinals. It's not like they're incapable of putting up 20-some plus, but the Steelers themselves have not gotten anywhere. The closest they got to 30 is, I want to say, was against the Seahawks, and of course I'm scrambling here. So they scored 27 twice. They scored against the Bengals and the Dolphins. Also teams that have been kind of down in the dumps this season. So yeah. I'm looking at this and I'm like, is this going to be a game where, which team has the more offensive success? When you look at the Cardinals offense, and everybody in Pittsburgh knows Larry Fitzgerald, and he's had one heck of a career as a receiver. But there's obviously some weapons. Kyler Murray is a mobile quarterback. I think he'll be a dynamic player for years to come in the mold of others that we've seen. Like a Russell Wilson, for example, or I don't even want to bring up Lamar Jackson. He's something different. So, yeah. But the Steelers have faced these type of guys this year too. So it's Baker Mayfield, for example. They couldn't get their hands on Baker defensively. They couldn't bring him down at all in the Thursday night game. Short rest, whatever may be the case, but they got to him 5 or 6 times last week. I know that Kyler Murray has been going down. I think he got sacked 5 or 6 times as well.
Six against the Rams.
6 against the Rams. Mm-hmm. A total of 42 overall this season. The Steelers have 43 sacks as a team, but only 8 on the road. Do you see kind of a similar type of thing playing out here, maybe, where is it because Kyler, is he trying to make things happen, or what is the reason, that he's taken all of these sacks, and is it going to be like a big play thing, or is it one of these things where it's like maybe a yard or two because he scrambles and it's statistically it's a sack, but it's not as detrimental as it seems versus just maybe a bad run up the middle or something?
Well, for Kyler, he's still trying to figure his way. He's got all that speed and talent. He throws a great ball. Within the offense, he's dealing with a bad offensive line. Our offensive line is probably one of the worst in the league. And he's actually run into a couple sacks just from his scrambling alone. It's kind of a double-edged sword, Joe, in that he's doing really well in terms of, a lot of rookies, they get back there and the pressure comes, the first thing they do is they duck their head and they hit that eject button. They want to get out of the pocket. They want to run. He's been the exact opposite. He's been scrambling within the pocket, keeping his eyes up, throwing the ball not necessarily down the field, but at least hitting his checkdowns and stuff like that. What was also happened, though, with a mobile quarterback, sometimes the offensive linemen don't know where he's actually going to be landing. And so the other caveat to Kyler Murray is, man, I'm not sure. When you watch this game, watch how small he is out there compared to everybody else on the field. So sometimes, he has a tendency, it's almost like he gets lost in the crowd a little bit and then pops out, and boom, there's a defensive end or somebody right on top of him. So for me, this game is going to come down from the offensive side of the ball. We've been waiting on this dynamic, high octane offense all season long, which we haven't really seen. There's been a lot of horizontal attack instead of vertical. Kyler's had several games where he's completed 25, 30 passes and only amassed like 163, 173 yards. So we haven't taken any shots down the field. Our tight ends are basically invisible. We haven't used them at all. Haven't exploited the middle of the field at all. And then you throw in our running game, man. And I'm not sure if you play fantasy football, but everybody had David Johnson on their, number one picks, 2 picks, behind the McCaffrey and stuff like that. As far as running back, he's been one of the biggest disappointments, not just here, but across the league. And, we went out and get Kenyon Drake to come in here. He gave a little spark, but now you're doing kind of timeshare between Drake, Johnson, and you even have to throw Edmonds into the mix, and nobody's really taking control. We don't have a ground game to speak of. In majority of our games, Kyler's been the leading rusher on the team, and you just can't have that. So, as far as identity for this offense, man, we're still trying to figure it out, and it's a little late in the season to be trying to figure it out. And that might be a hindrance in this game, because what usually happens, they'll abandon the run really early, and then Kyler will be throwing it all over the place, but it's sideline to sideline. We're not amassing any yards. And then the other thing, we get down to the red zone. I think we're probably lowest in the league in terms of red zone efficiency as far as touchdowns. We settle for field goals or miss field goals. And, that might play a big role in this, because we can put some yards together. But, these long, sustainable drives that end up in the red zone with field goals are not going to do us any good. I really agree with you. I don't think this is going to be one of those high-scoring games. Pittsburgh might get into the mid-20s, but then you put us in the, somewhere around 14 to 16 or 17, that still equals a great victory for the Steelers on the road. So, I'm with you. I'm not thinking it's going to be like an explosive everybody, 40 or 100-yard sprint up and down the field. But it could, like I said, I do think Pittsburgh, if they come in here with the proper attack, advantage Steelers, just because, like I said, they utilize their weapons a little better than we do here, I would say.
It's been a struggle, though, and I think that's part of, the kind of the myth is, it wasn't like Mason didn't take some shots downfield. A lot of passes didn't necessarily travel past 10 yards, but against the Browns last week, Devlin Hodges had, practically half of them complete. I guess one was completed, but to the other team. Interception. It was like 3 of 7 when throwing beyond 10 yards. I was actually pulling up the next-gen stats. A lot of the stuff falling short anywhere, some behind the line of scrimmage, a little screen or a dump-off, or, anywhere within 5 yards. So, it's still there. But it's not like they've really been leaning on him to, throw 30, 40 passes like maybe like a Jared Goff did last week. I think Jared Goff was, I had it here, 43 attempts. We haven't gotten that anywhere like that with the Duck yet. He's appeared in 4 games, 9, 20, 11, and 21 attempts. Although accurate, for the most part, 77, 75. There was the one game against the Bengals just a couple weeks ago that I was down there. And, he made the big play to James Washington, but things still weren't quite clicking. Then all of a sudden against the Browns, I don't know if it was an added motivation because of, everything else that transpired with the previous game a couple weeks earlier. But, things were starting to click a little bit on offense. We talked about, we kind of beat a dead horse with this already with the Arizona defense. I kind of wanted to switch some gears there too, as you were talking about Kyler Murray. Okay, maybe he could be a little slippery. I do like some of the receivers for the Cardinals. I like all of the running backs. I told you I was an FCS guy, so David Johnson, I was really pulling for him, but he's been hurt too. So, some of this has been necessity of having to go get Kenyon Drake because of injuries with him and Edmonds. And, all three are capable. It's just a matter of how that offense. I think it's going to be a matter of the offensive line versus the Steelers' defensive line. The Steelers are still down Stephon Tuitt, but it doesn't seem like that's made. Tuitt was having his best year in his career thus far before landing on injured reserve. They're still making do with, Tyson Alualu, some more reps to Javon Hargrave, who plays all along that defensive line. How maybe can the Cardinals, is there something they can do to maybe help out Kyler Murray there? Because in order to take those deep shots, like you said, they would, you would like to see those deep shots. You'd like to see it with some of the receivers that you got. How maybe can they help facilitate that? Because I would assume you got to get some type of running game going first with either of those three guys. And you said it best. I mean, David Johnson's a guy, he might be wanting to protect it. Is he going to want to protect his money? You know what I mean? And is the franchise looking at it the same way? It's the same way, like, you don't play teams in the preseason. Could you afford to have him have like a knee injury or something late in the year where he's not available at the beginning of next year as well? So interested in your insight on that.
Well, I talked about this a couple weeks ago. He had one of those games. I can't do it 2 weeks ago. I think it might have been Tampa, whoever it was. He did not start. He had, I think, a total of 9 plays on the field, no rushing attempts and no passing attempts to him. So, is that the sign that the Cardinals are starting to make that business decision of, because I've been talking about it all year, I just don't think he has been a great fit for this offense. I'm going to go back and look and find the percentage of snaps that we take out of shotgun or pistol formation, and that's just not David Johnson's game. David Johnson needs to have a fullback in front of him, give him tackle to tackle and the option to get out on the edges, but he's a downhill kind of guy, and it just hasn't fit in this offense. So maybe they're already planning, obviously, that we're not a playoff team. We're struggling to get hopefully a couple victories to finish everything out and maybe have a good taste in our mouth. But maybe they're already deciding, because even this past week, he only had 2 or 3 carries, maybe 1 pass to him. Maybe it's time that they're thinking, rather than risk him getting hurt, maybe we can take a healthier version of him into the off season and find out who's interested and get something for him. So, your initial question was, what can we do to help Kyler? Man, you hit it right on the head. The biggest thing is we have to establish a running game and then also not abandon it as soon as it doesn't start working. We get a few plays into the game, you can tell it's going to be a tough day running the ball. Next we don't see it again for the rest of the game. And that's not going to help Kyler having to drop back 30, 45 times and throwing the ball. And then what's even worse, if you're just throwing it sideline to sideline and not exploiting the middle of the field, you're not going to get anywhere anyway. So, the best thing we can do for him, which I don't have a lot of confidence in just because how the season has gone so far, is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And I don't care who runs it, whether it's Edmonds, who might be back in the lineup, Drake or Johnson, or if it's a 3-headed monster, go ahead and do it. But we have to commit to running the ball maybe 30, 35 times to take some relief off Kyler and also give him the option of play action. We haven't used any of that. And then one last thing I would say, Joe, is, man, can we do to everybody else what they do to us? Get the tight end involved somehow. I mean, it's funny. You would think that the number of tight ends that have come in here, that our offense, that Kingsbury would say, you know what, let's start using that against everybody else like they use it against us. But it just doesn't happen. Our tight ends are invisible. I know we go with a lot of spread formations, 3 and 4 wide, but it just hasn't, materialized to this point. And that'll be something that, after the season is over, we'll watch and figure out, like, what version 2 of this is all going to look like. But, we come out here and decide we can't run the ball and we're not even going to try, then it could be a long day for Kyler back there scrambling and running for his life.
It used to be like, the Steelers, and still to some degree, I guess, maybe it's just a byproduct of, playing, I'd like to say 3-4, but it's mainly nickel anymore with the Steelers, and they play like a lot of defensive backs. But I mean, you guys got Charles Clay and Max Williams. Those are both, formidable tight ends there. I know it's not you or your brother or your nephew running around out there, but, I think they can get the job done there. But, also speaking of running game, I have this tidbit here too about Kyler Murray, and he's one of 3 QBs in the NFL this season to have thrown for 2,500 or more yards and also rushed for 400 plus yards, joining obviously the aforementioned Lamar Jackson and also Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Are those more or less, are those kind of design plays, and might, the Steelers be prepping for something like that where, like they did with Lamar Jackson, they had to prepare to stop the run, multifaceted. I know it's not maybe the same type of misdirection type plays as playing like the 49ers or, obviously Garoppolo's not running, but they have a number of backs capable, or the way the Ravens are just steamrolling everyone with their run game. Will the Cardinals attempt to, do they do some design plays like this with the quarterback, kind of giving them an option to take the ball or just hand off?
Not as much as I thought they would at the beginning of the year. They haven't run him on a lot of design stuff. A lot of his runs have been scrambles. And that one of the things that I've noticed throughout this year so far is because it's an unknown, especially early in the season, nobody had a fix on what the whole game plan or what the offensive attack was going to look like. You come in and you have to kind of be prepared for, like I said, the unknown. And then you find, and that's why there have been a few games where we kind of got an early start on teams. They were probably over on the sidelines. Back in my day, it used to be with the film they send from the top. Now they got the tablets over there, and they're kind of trying to figure out everything out on the run. But as soon as they get a grasp on it, then they kind of slow us down. And I think that's been a problem for us in terms of some of our second half swoons, because we haven't adjusted to kind of make it even more difficult. And we've gone in with a halfway decent game plan, took them by surprise a little bit with a couple jet motions and different things, and maybe a Kyler keep and stuff like that. But then eventually the opposition kind of figures it out, and we don't have that second verse to keep them off their toes. So, we haven't been what I would call very dynamic. There's been a couple games that we've done different things, and I thought, man, if we just could do that on a more consistent basis, and that also includes the up-tempo. Every now and then, Joe will come out, and they'll just decide, hey, we're just going to go boom, boom, boom. And you can tell it takes the defense and the coordinators by surprise. It's just that we don't stick to it. So, at this point, I'm still trying to figure it all out. I'm sure they're in the meeting rooms trying to come up with a good game plan. The biggest thing, like I said, they have to – I would use – Kyler a little more in the running game. And the other thing, I talked to my partner the other day about this on the Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals podcast. At this point in the season, Joe, what do you have to lose? I mean, I would be going into every bag and trick I had, and I would say, look, fellas, we're just going to go out here and we're going to sling it around, have some fun, maybe do a few things different, but we still even haven't seen that. It's still sometimes been such a conservative game plan. And like I said, who knows, maybe this is the one they go deep into the bag to try to fool the Steelers a little bit, but that would be a surprise to me too.
I had that in the back of my mind. It was one of the things where I know a lot of Steelers Nation is concerned with. It used to be the kind of the tag, whether it was completely true or not. Mike Tomlin loses to bad teams, play down to bad teams, play bad on the road. We haven't really heard a whole lot about that this season because maybe of other storylines. Same thing maybe even last season, although it did happen, against the Broncos and the Raiders and some of the opponents that they faced near the end where they end up missing the postseason. And, this is the last quarter of football here. There's 4 games left. What do you have to lose? Cardinals have nothing to lose, nor do the Steelers' next 2 opponents following that. The Buffalo Bills pretty much have everything to lose. They're in the hunt as well, and that's pretty much going to be a must-win game, and it was moved to Sunday Night Football, in fact, because of that, because of the pedigree of that game. And then the same thing with the New York Jets. So a lot of teams trying to figure out what they have, what they're going to go with, and hey, you know what? maybe it keeps someone's job. You get one victory,
Yeah.
somebody gets to keep a job, whether it be a player, somebody on the staff. You never know. So I look at this game, and I still have concerns for all of the aforementioned reasons. I mean, it's been a fun ride, but it's been a roller coaster ride with ups and downs all season. Yourself, Ed, I probably have I could probably talk to you for hours because I would have so many questions about even just the XFL, for example, and maybe we'll have to reconvene in the off season and discuss how that might be beneficial for some players and stuff too. But you've kind of been a jack of all trades, done it all, motivational speaker, author, and everything. And my hat's off to you. Thanks for joining us today. But I do have maybe two quick hitters for you before I let you go. One. Boy, I really don't know how to phrase this, but my co-host Brian has something he hashtags on social media. I'm not sure if you do the Twitter stuff too, but the refs stink. Hashtag the refs stink. And the reason he says this is, we cannot figure out the pass interference stuff. I don't know if the Cardinals have had this bite them one way or another this season, but it's been tricky. As a former player, what do you think about some of the stuff that's going on now with replay? I mean, when I see something on TV, to me, it should be as simple as the playground. Was it obvious or not? And it doesn't seem like it's working out that way.
I'll take it a step further. First off, every rule has been bent to the offense for the most part. And being a former tight end, my brother and I, we sit with my nephew all the time, and we've actually asked him, what is it like to be able to run in free space and nobody can even touch you if they just get a hand on you? My brother and I, we come from the era when there was no 5-yard rule. You had to get up the field however you could. And if a linebacker decided to latch onto you and ride you like a donkey up the road, then that's exactly what they did. Whereas now, like I said, you see some of these penalties, just illegal contact. The guy gets chucked or something like that. And, it's just ridiculous. And then you toss in the pass interference. I am like you, Joe. I have absolutely no idea what is or isn't pass interference. It's almost like whatever the refs call, they've decided in the New York offense. I don't care if the dude took out a hacksaw and hit him in his knee, but if the ref called no pass interference, there's going to be no pass interference. If they called it and it looked like it was nothing, we're not going to call it. So if I was a head coach, man, I would never even pull my flag out to even challenge it because it's a wasted motion nowadays. And you toss in other things, man. I know you said Brian has the ref suck. I love that too. I might have to go check that out. Think about what it means, with these quarterbacks. Some of these roughing the passer calls. It's like a guy, he landed on him with his body weight. It's like, really? What was he supposed to do? So the refs, man, I don't know whether it's a conspiracy within because they figure, well, we're going to show you guys. But, sometimes makes the game really, really rough to watch because the officiating is so bad from time to time.
Man, that's a total unique perspective from your end, because the only difference is it pretty much lines up with everything we've said too. So yeah, you're just sitting here I'm glad you brought up roughing the quarterback, because that's another thing that does worry me. You have a quarterback that's mobile like Kyler Murray. When does the skirt come off? When did the flags around the waist come off and you're allowed to tackle this guy? Because that's kind of something that bit the Steelers with hitting Lamar Jackson too. And I had a personal question for you. Usually I ask, tell us something we don't know about you, but I know a lot of the folks listening are Steelers fans and they don't know a whole lot about yourself. But I did mention that you're a part of that NFC Championship Falcons team, one of the teams you played for. And if I'm not mistaken, those were the Dirty Birds, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so did you get in on the Dirty Bird dance a couple times yourself?
I did a couple times, man. And you're talking about a magical season. I know you guys have had up there in Steeler Nation. It's old hat for you guys. The Falcon team I was on was actually the first to ever go to the Super Bowl. And you're talking about a magical ride, man, especially being that the year before I was there, we started out 1-7, finished up 7-9, which was a great second half. But we didn't have that culture of knowing been there, done that. So for us to be on that magical ride with that team and, the Dirty Bird, that was another thing. We established an identity, and that nickname goes a long way. Whenever somebody finds out I played with the Falcons always pointed me, were you with the Dirty Birds? So it's great to be associated with that, and obviously they went to a recent Super Bowl, but I can say I was a part of that first edition. So, it was a great experience, and, something that my brother, who played 9 years in the league, he never got the chance to experience, and a whole lot of guys I know played a lot longer and deeper than I did, never got to experience it as well.
Yeah, that was also Dan Reeves too. Was your
coach. Dan Reeves.
Yeah,
and one of the greatest leaders. I know you guys have Tomlin up there. He's a legendary guy too. But Dan Reeves, I tell everybody, I would have ran through a brick wall for that man and done just about anything. Great man.
That's awesome. So, Ed, leave us with this. Let us know, where anybody that's interested in hearing more from you, where you're going to be, what are you up to, and how can our listeners follow you?
Well, I appreciate it, Joe. First off, man, thank you for having me on. A great time with you. Everybody can catch me on the Bleav networks. It's BLEAV. We do the Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals podcast. We usually do it every Tuesday, and it's out either that night or on Wednesday. My partner and I also do the Easy Sports Talk show, which is out here every Saturday from 10 to 12 on KDUS 1060 AM. So they can go on the website, the Phoenix 1060 AM website, and find us on there and listen to us either remotely or if they're here in the Valley. On Twitter, which I very rarely use and everybody makes fun of me, is at Ed Smith Speaks. Same thing for Instagram. So, man, I can't thank you enough. And I'd like to invite you when you have a Saturday, even if it's this coming Saturday coming up. We're always looking to reciprocate. So if after we're done with this, you let me know if you got some time Saturday. We'll have you on the preview Cardinals Steelers as well.
Oh, may be able to do that. We'll have to see. I'm also a Ohio State Buckeyes guy, so they're kind of playing in a game, but we'll see if they. We're going to see what it's like. They got Wisconsin, so, but, I actually went to that Big Ten championship game I think it was 2 seasons ago, and it was a lot tighter than a lot of people would have maybe expected. So I'm curious how this one's going to play out. You never know. I mean, there's a lot.
I got to tell one. My brother played at Notre Dame, so I know all the big Notre Dame games. One of my real treats, man, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was able to come over for Ohio State, Michigan. One of my old baseball buddies is. Grandmother was a big booster, so we were up in the suite watching the game and everything. Man, I got to tell you, I've seen some games a lot of different places. Nothing like Ohio State, Michigan on a Saturday at the Shoe, man. So, like I said, I love it.
Well, at least it wasn't the big house and you were bragging about how good that was. So we would have we would have just cut this off right now. I'm sure. Well, thanks once again, Ed. A reminder to all our listeners out there. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Joe Kuzma, and we always encourage our listeners here at Steel City Underground to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.